A city building management game based on beavers? You had my curiosity, now you have my attention. Bonus points to anyone who can tell me in the comments where that quote is from. Hi everyone, I hope you're all doing well. Today we're taking our second look on the channel at Timberborn. Other than a few recent streams where I've been playing the game and putting it through its paces, I also took a look at the demo before it released into early access. At that time, I was pleasantly surprised with the concepts behind the game, and when I was offered a key very kindly by the developers to take another look, I jumped at the chance. Mechanistry, the developers, have continued to add a lot to the game and are certainly taking feedback from the community and updating and changing things based on that. Now, I have to be honest, I am a sucker for a management game. They were one of my first loves when it came to video games when I started getting into them back when I was a kid, aka the days of the original theme park, theme hospital, transport tycoon, to name but a few. Timberborn places itself nicely between a city builder and a management game, where as things progress, very careful resource management is a must, as one little mistake can quickly snowball and end your little town. The concept is simple: the world ended and humanity died out, leaving behind the ruins of its civilization. The world now suffers from water shortages and increasing periods of drought. Beavers have become sentient, let's not question that too much, and it's up to you to guide them to form a new and thriving civilization. Okay, let's talk about gameplay, and I'm going to try and cover the salient points because going into loads of detail here will just make this video way too long. So you start with humble beginnings of a few beavers and the equivalent of a town hall, and you must gather food, wood and water. From that perspective, it looks like your standard town builder or management game with a very distinct art style. But unlike most games, water is the key to everything here. Without water, you can't grow plants for food or trees to build. Without water, your beavers die of thirst. And that's where the major challenge comes in: water management and dealing with the progressively lengthening droughts, as well as supplying bits of land that have no water with water so you can grow more food or more trees. And from needing to store water to finding ways to dam it off so it can't flow away, your job is to keep things running smoothly even when things start to look bleak. And in particular, when it comes to managing water flow, there's a lot of experimentation to be done here. It's one of those very much easy to pick up, hard to master jobs. Now, while the water is such an interesting feature, that's not where the game ends with its interesting features. Another one is verticality. Some buildings can be constructed on top of each other, and there's obviously this idea of increasing dam height to build up more water reserves. Height also plays into how some buildings function, especially important for things like gravity batteries, where you want to really hang them over the edge of a cliff. And this isn't specifically told to you, it's just strongly implied. And this is again that whole hard to master thing where you'll pick up the basics and then you'll start to experiment with what works better. And that's one of the wonderful things about this game, is there's always something new to learn. Now, beyond those two massive features, it plays a lot like traditional Anno style games, where you build your town while trying to keep your population happy, improve their well-being with increased variety of food types, leisure activities, and eventually monuments, not forgetting their medical needs and the issues of broken beaver teeth. Now, all of this drives expansion, the need to unlock new buildings via research, and eventually branching off into new districts with their own town hall buildings to provide for the main town or city. You eventually can even reach the level of utilizing little robots to help your beavers carry out tasks. Now, while many games would stop there and say, we've got enough here, these guys have not. So let's move on to factions. So initially you have access to the Folktales group, which behave exactly as you'd imagine beavers would, with a focus on respecting nature, being expert farmers with the motto, comfort, food and sturdy wood. Have you got wood? Well, these beavers sure do. Now, once you play with this faction a while and achieve level 15 of happiness for them, you unlock the second faction, the Iron Teeth defectors from the traditional Timberways, masters of iron and science, achieving progress with disregard for the environment. Basically, they're the human faction in beaver form. Both factions have a very distinct playstyle, with a number of buildings being unique to one or the other. As noted, the Folktales have a focus on farming and gain 2 unique farm buildings and a food tree, making good use of these, leading to flour and bread amongst other things such as maple pastries. Sounds really tasty. Focused on cooking food in a more traditional sense, of course. They are also very environmentally friendly, utilizing wind for power along with some basic water wheels. And when it comes to breeding, they're very much the traditional family home setting with very traditional procreation. I mention this bit because it's very different for the other faction. The Iron Teeth, on the other hand, have this very industrial focus, limited to standard farming but with more advanced hydroponics gardens available later. Their advanced food comes from fermentation and repackaging food in a food factory to make ration packs. Power is provided by more advanced water wheels and later oil-burning generators. Unlike their folktale counterparts, they live in very efficient big barracks rather than comfortable homes. And very interestingly, for their breeding, they are taking a leaf out of the Borg from Star Trek's book with breeding pods. They must be supplied with water and nutrients to produce children, and that is the only way they can produce offspring. And weirdly, from my experience, this actually made them a much more difficult faction to play because of the amount of resources those things actually drain. Now, I've got to be honest, and full credit to the dev team here, I was genuinely surprised how different the two factions played and how many unique buildings and resources they both had. I thought it would stop at maybe one or two, but honestly, it's such a difference. Even their basic vegetables that they can grow are different, which results in you having some very different gameplay experiences from one faction to the other, and gives the game some serious replayability. Now, my final comments on the gameplay are simply that there are many hidden tricks and ways to manage the land and water better, and you pick that up over time, and let me give you a little head start. Don't forget, beavers can swim. They don't need bridges to reach every area. And I know that sounds like the simplest and most sensible thing ever, but genuinely, I forgot when I started playing again. Overall, the gameplay loop feels solid. While not entirely familiar, it's easy enough to pick up if you have played other such management games. It's also a game you can play in a rather chilled manner, just letting it run slowly in the background while you're doing other tasks and checking in on it when you need to, especially if you're playing on a lower speed. Now, this is something that's not included in every game these days, but it does have a map editor if you fancy trying your hand at putting together your own design. Will you make it extremely difficult or give the beavers an easier time? And I believe these can all be shared on the Steam Workshop as well. Now, in terms of graphics and sound, the game has a rather cartoony graphics set, which suits it very well. Its rather unique wood and metal focused art style is one of the game's charms. The game also has a day-night cycle which lets you see your city all lit up at night, and it just adds to that aesthetic of why your beavers are working for part of the day and, taking a break for the rest of it. Perhaps one of the most impressive technical and graphical accomplishments is the water, how it flows or indeed stagnates in a pond, how it interacts with the world around it as it flows, indeed how the world is affected by it, the land becoming fertile when the river flows or barren when it does not. It's a throwback to the old Pharaoh game where you had whole areas flooding with the Nile and that soil becoming fertile when it receded. In this case, the water needs to be there for the soil to remain fertile. The music in the game is very pleasant, very relaxing, and is exactly what I would expect from such a game, and the sounds are very non-invasive. They're just there, they're not too loud, it all runs nice and smoothly. Timberborn is shaping up to be a fun and somewhat unique offering in the town management genre. What they have so far is very impressive. The use of water in this way is exceptionally well done and provides a really interesting challenge that can really make or break your city. At the current time of writing, it's in early access and it's 20% off for the Update 4 at just £16.79, which I think is really a very reasonable price for what's on offer. Their normal price is £20.99, which is pretty reasonable too for the amount of playtime you're going to get out of this. Now, I have a policy of not telling people to buy early access games, so I simply won't. I will just say that even though it's early access, and I won't score it again for the same reason, had it been presented to me as it is now, as a release title, then honestly it would score pretty well. Now, I can't actually find a roadmap for the game. I think the devs are just adding what they feel they want to add to it, and perhaps that's sensible. It means they're not saying we have to reach this point by this time and disappoint people. But I look forward to see what else gets added to the game in the future and revisiting it again when there's another major update. Have you played the game yourself? Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Once again, many thanks to the developers at Mechanistry for the review key. It was a real pleasure to touch base with this game again. As always, please do like, share, subscribe, comment, help feed that YouTube algorithm. Thanks very much, and I'll see you all soon.